Hey YouTube, so I actually recorded this video in November 2023. It is definitely November 2024, but I'm finally editing videos in my vault. So this is just a video of my first time making small letters, and I'll just show you from start to finish how I made this rug. It is more of a time-lapse sort of video, essentially sped forward 4 times as fast so you can see the full process of tufting. And let's go. So I'm starting with burlap, and this is you can get it from Hobby Lobby, Michael's, whatever store sells crafts. It is a bit better to buy by yard instead of buying like one at a time. So this was like $8, and I'm able to get 2 pieces of cloth for my frame out of this. So this frame I got from Tufting World, and it's a pre-made kit, and I've been using it for years. It's small, but it does the job. It is great for beginners, and it does have carpet tacks facing outward that you will want to connect your burlap to. And I like to think of the analogy, you want your burlap to be as tight as a tennis racket, or not necessarily, you don't want it like a trampoline. Like, you don't want it to be saggy, but you want it to have that tension of a tennis racket, so just your finger bounces right off of it. So now I'm tracing my church's logo. I go to Social Dallas here in Dallas, Texas, led by Pastor Robert and Taylor Madu. Absolutely love it. And at this point, when I'm making the rug, I started going to the church in April, and I'm making this as a Thanksgiving gift for them in November. And I just really wanted to practice small rugs, so it was a great piece to practice on and a very meaningful rug to give away. I have like a bunch of rugs in my house that I keep, and I just wanted to give something away and also practice my skills. And make sure you trace your image backwards, so you're making the rug literally from back to front, and the fuzzy part is what other people will see, so that's why you have to tuft it as if like you're looking in the mirror, essentially. So that is why it is backwards, and you can just flip the image on your phone when you go to edit and rotate the image. So I like to put this black cloth behind my burlap so I can see the image better. The burlap is very transparent, so this just helps it be a bit more solid. So now I'm looping my gun, and if you're curious about how it sounds in real time, here is an example. And as you can see, the yarn can easily come out of your tufting gun, so you do want to thread it and allow a lot of slack in your yarn so that it feeds effortlessly. If you have a lot of tension in your yarn or it's not easily to pull through, then it will keep ripping out of your gun. So here we are, fast forwarded. I fast forward the video 4 times as fast to make it as short as possible. The entire video was probably 3 hours long, and so of course I'm not going to make you sit through that, and plus I don't have the space to upload that as one video. So this is just an extremely sped up version so you can see how I make the rug. So I like to start by doing the outline of my big things. I think it creates a great border, great definition. I don't want to do the outline like I'm outlining the letters that are going to be white. I don't want to outline them in black because they will be smaller because of the border confines them more, if that makes sense. So definitely outline it with the primary color of what that letter will be rather than what the background will be. And now you kind of just color in the lines. I love tufting because it's literally like coloring and painting, but with yarn. And I probably do my lines a little too close together. The closer you do it together, the more yarn you will need because it's more dense and compacted together. If you space it out more, you don't want it to be too spacey because then you'll have gaps in, very thin rugs. So to each its own. I like my yarns, I like my lines to be touching without any translucent space between them. So these letters are bigger and they were much easier to do because I have a lot of room to kind of get my lines right, space it out. And this did not up again, so you can just cut whenever you have a hold up or a knot in your yarn. You do want to thread it through as much as possible. That's why these keyhole screws are on the frame, and this came with the frame, but you can get wood and keyholes from Lowe's. Here I am trying to thread it through. Honestly, most of tufting is just threading your yarn. I did have a yarn winder, but it broke and I never bought a new one. So ideally you will pre-wind all of your yarn so that it is much easier to thread through. But this is kind of like the lazy way, and it does absolutely take more time. So if you do have a yarn winder, I would absolutely recommend you do that to prepare your yarn. So now I am trying to do the small letters. So this is my very first time doing small letters. It's honestly very difficult. I have tweezers and I'm plucking out my mistakes. You don't want to pluck out too much yarn because your tufting gun does make a hole with each tuft, and the more you pull out, the looser the weft is, and it makes it harder to tuft back in that space. But again, this is me practicing, so I'm kind of doing all the straight lines first because that's the easiest, and then I'm doing the vertical and horizontal lines first because those are straight and I can kind of control the gun. But it's the curves and the S's and the O's, and that is in the C, it's a little more challenging. So my method in this was to kind of color outside the lines with the S and with the C and kind of make a sloppy copy, if you will, of the letter, and then pluck out all the excess that I don't need because I would rather have it be a little spacious and a little holes so I can practice the curvature of my tufting and then go in and fill in the imperfections. So this is the fuzzy side. I flipped my rug around and I'm just trying to kind of clean up the perimeter of my letters. It is a little hard. I see people do this often on YouTube and TikTok where they kind of define their image and their letters by trimming before they tuft in their next color. It absolutely does help and creates more clarity. However, you don't want to rip your burlap or your monk's cloth or your tufting cloth with your razor. So you have to be very careful, very slow, because it can easily nick your fabric and then you just have a gaping hole in your fabric and then you essentially cannot finish your design unless you more or less sew the fabric back together or piece it back together somehow. So I didn't want to do that. So it was a bit harder for me to trim the social Dallas part of the rug. I did trim the SD and make it a little cleaner so that when I do the black background, but trimming the social Dallas letters was very difficult. I did use scissors at some point, very small scissors, to kind of clean up as much as I could, but that is definitely a skill that would need more practice. So now I am getting the black yarn together for the background, and I love circle rugs. If you know me, you know I just love a circle rug. They're just so perfect. It's just oddly satisfying to just have a perfect circle. Honestly, I struggle to make rectangles and squares because sometimes like the angle and the diagonal of when I tuft, it doesn't quite reflect as well when it's done. because I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's hard for me to do squares. Even though I trace the square perfectly, sometimes I have a little excess on the corner, and so it's a little crooked. But with circles, it's perfect. You can't mess up a circle. So I like to do the nitty gritty details first. I want to go in and outline my letters, my major letters, the SD and for Social Dallas. And that just creates a clear border between the S and the D. And here I am going to the front. I could have flipped it around, but I didn't feel like it. I'm going to the front and I'm just plucking the black between the S and the D to make sure there's no white overlay between the two, because that can easily happen, especially with this thin of a separation. I don't want to pluck out too much black because then they will have a lot of crosshairs. When you tuft, you have like excess strings left over from when you stop. Some people just cut them off at the end. Some people leave them and glue it. But I find that when you're done with the rug and you do the backing and everything, all those excess fibers pull out easily. So you'll see me plucking out yarn when I tuft. So when I stop tufting and take my gun down, because it's cutting the yarn into inch pieces and looping it, and whatever is excess, I just pull it out. I don't think it creates that much of a gap in my image. It, in my opinion, makes it cleaner, because then I can fill it in, if that makes sense. So essentially I want the back of my rug to be completely flat with no yarn sticking out. I only want yarn sticking out on the other side where it's supposed to be fuzzy at. So now I'm doing the Social Dallas small letters, and this was very hard, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I had to pluck out a lot of the yarn and fill in the gaps again, but it was so hard because doing the letters alone were hard. Trying to do the curves, but imagine doing the border of those letters. I didn't want to run into the letter and cover up what I've done and overlay the white, so you have to be very careful when you're doing your outline that you're not running into the primary image. So this is my favorite part. Once I'm outlined with everything, it's just like a satisfying fill in the colors. And to make this rug, I used essentially, well, you always use 2 strings when you tuft. You want 2 strings of the same color. So I did use 2 bundles of white yarn for the middle, but I only, what would be equivalent of using 1. If I had a yarn winder, I would have cut the 1 bundle in half and had enough. However, again, I didn't do that. So you need 2 yarns for the Social Dallas, and I believe I used like 2 full bundles of black yarn and maybe a third to fill in a few spaces, because I did, as you see, like right now I'm pulling out those feathers pieces, I guess is what you can call them. So total, I would say 5 bundles of yarn, 3 black and 2 white. And the burlap was $8. The yarn is like $3. So tufting, depending on your image, it could definitely be affordable. It's more so the time that is the real kicker. Total, this rug, I would say, start to finish, 3 hours. And that's not including the backing. So I guess that's not start to finish. Start to finish, so the tracing probably takes, the tracing and the setup of the burlap probably takes 30 minutes. The tufting of the white part was probably an hour. The tufting of the black part was probably 2 hours because of all the detail, and I was kind of going slow with this one. It was my first time doing the small one. So then the gluing is probably 30 minutes. It has to dry for 24 hours. For me, I let it dry for 24 hours. And then the backing, I hate backing. It's so tedious and stinky and messy and sticky. So backing for me takes like an hour. And then you want to trim the rug on the front so that may also take an hour. So you are looking like, I didn't add up all that time, you can do the math, but if I had to guess, start to finish, it may take average 5-6 hours to do one rug. And I did do this all in one night. If you do want to tuft all in one night, I would highly recommend it because it allows your burlap or your tufting cloth to stay taut as possible without like sagging and loosening overnight if you have to continue the next day. So definitely try to finish it all in one night. I did do this all in one night, and that way I was able to get the glue on while my tufting cloth was still very taut and tight. And that is definitely the goal when tufting. The sooner you get the glue on, the sooner you set your image and your foundation and allow it to dry tightly. Like, I don't want this to sag overnight and loosen and become all oval shaped, essentially. Like, so that would be my advice. I have had to, if you see my Bart Simpson rug on my channel, I posted a while ago. I did have to do that one over a 2-day period because I work night shifts. I used to, so it was hard for me to do tufting. But this one, now that I'm on day shifts and a new job, it's definitely easier to tuft, which I love because it's like doing a painting. You know, you don't want to really be interrupted or stop or have delays. You want to get everything out when you have the energy and you're motivated to do it. Now I'm taking my tweezers, and there are places where I have too much yarn. If you have too much yarn, it'll be very bulky, and it'll also kind of come out when you rub the front. So I'm flipping it. Well, on the back side, I am pulling out the excess yarn, and on the front side, I'm cleaning up the borders, essentially. So I'm trying, my hair is in the way. If I would have thought better, I would have probably wore a bun or something. Still working on my angles of how I record, so please be patient with me. More videos coming soon. But you see, I'm kind of cleaning up the borders of the S and the small letters and trying to define my image. If you can, make your rug as pristine and clear as possible before you glue it. It makes your trimming easier because you kind of did a lot of the grunt work of cleanup. So I'm kind of like pulling yarn up, pushing it down, straightening the lines. And this will allow me to see if I have to fill in any gaps before I glue. Once you glue it, it's kind of game over. Your image is set. There's no going back. You can't add. You can only take away. So tufting, the only place you can add is before you glue. And I want my Social Dallas line to look like it was done within one kind of swipe of the tufting. I don't want one letter to be too thick in areas to look like I kind of overwrote it, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm plucking any excess letters that I may have. So I think I'm pretty satisfied with that. Apparently not. I'm going in a little bit more. Filling in with some more black for what I've cleaned up. Okay, so now I'm satisfied. Here's my Roberts 3095 glue. You can get this from Amazon or Lowe's. And I have these spatulas. So I like to go section by section, do the border essentially first, do my edges first to set that foundation and lock in that frame. And the glue can be it's very thick and it can definitely fall on the ground, so you want to have something to catch underneath it. I put like a piece of cloth on the carpet because you'll be surprised with, you think you scoop up just a little bit of glue and then it falls and then it gets stuck in your carpet or stuck on your hardwood floor and it's gross. So put like a catch-all cover or something you don't care about at the bottom, just in case you have excess glue fall down. So when you do the tufting, it looks like I'm just placing it on very lightly like paint, but I'm really pushing it in as much as I can, considering I'm just using a spatula. You really want to be firm and get that glue weaving between your wefts of your tufting to really lock in those fibers. If you just lightly paint it on top, you really won't have good binding in your rug. So I'm going through with like a light layer just to kind of push it in, and then I'm going through with more of a paint on top layer after that. And I believe I buy the glue for like $25 for this size of a bucket, so it definitely goes far. Only need a little bit per rug. And the glue is very tacky and sticky. You can use Goo Gone spray to clean up your spatulas. So this is before, just some images. And this is the rug after. I did not show the trimming because this is just kind of a start to finish of the tufting part on frame only. I do have a video on my channel for backing. Please check that out. I had so much fun making this. It was such a challenge. I did make 2 of them and I got better with the second one. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Also, check out my church. I love it so much. Bye.